Hi, welcome to our daily encounter. Today we're going to be looking at two people in our reading that I believe are great examples for us and people that we should follow in our own lives. And the two that I'm referring to is Enoch and Noah. Both of these guys, it was said, had walked with God. In chapter 5 of Genesis, in verse 24, it says, Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. And then in chapter 6 and verse 9, it said of Noah that Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time. Noah walked with God. So both of these guys, it was said, had walked with God. And to me, that is the greatest accomplishment in a person's life. So after they are gone to it, to have been said of them that they walked with God. There might be a lot of accomplishments a person might achieve in this life. A person might become a great athlete, or a person might become the CEO of a great company, or a person might be an inventor of something new and something that changes the way the human race lives. Or they might be a person who acquires a high education and becomes an expert in their field. Whatever it is, there's a lot of things that we can accomplish, but to me the greatest accomplishment in life is this, that a person walk with God. I know with myself, after my life is lived and people look back on my life, that's the one thing I would like for people to say about me, that I walked with God. And hopefully that's your goal as well. And that is your main focus, to be a person who walks with the Lord. But in order for us to do that, we got to kind of investigate what it means to walk with God. What does that exactly mean? Well, Hebrews chapter 11 helps us out with that. In Hebrews 11, you have a list of people who walk by faith. And a lot of times it's called the Hall of Faith. And Enoch is mentioned in this list in verse 5 of Hebrews 11. It says, By faith Enoch was taken up so that he would not see death. And he was not, because God took him up, for he obtained the witness that before his being taken up he was pleasing to God. So a big part of walking with the Lord is pleasing the Lord, finding favor in the sight of the Lord, which would include basically two things. One, it would naturally include obedience, because how can we say we really walk with the Lord and please the Lord if we're walking contrary to his will? And so it implies that he was walking in obedience to the Lord. But secondly, it implies that he was walking by faith as well. Now, because in verse 6, the Hebrew writer makes this point. He says, And without faith it is impossible to please him, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. Alright, so he says that the fact that Enoch was pleasing to God naturally implies that he walked by faith, because without faith it's impossible to please God. And so that's the point of the Hebrew writer. Enoch must have walked by faith in this walking before the Lord, because he pleased the Lord in his walking. And so if we want to walk with the Lord, we got to walk in obedience to the Lord. That is, that we put the will of God above our own will, and we put the desires of God above our own desires. And that we live a life that is not like the world, not according to the standards of the world, not according to the expectations of the world necessarily, but that always puts God above everything else. But also in this verse is mentioned seeking God, that God is a rewarder of those who seek him. Enoch knew that through his faith that God is a rewarder of those who seek him, and so again that implies that he was a person who sought after God, who sought the presence of God in his life, which would have motivated him into a life of prayer, a life of meditation upon God, a life in which he brought God into his life and allowed God to fill his life, to be the purpose of his life, to be the motivating factor in everything that he did. This would all be wrapped up in this walking before the Lord, being obedient to him, walking by faith, seeking the Lord, That's how we can walk, how it can be said of us that we can walk before the Lord. We can obey Him, we can walk by faith, and we can seek Him. We need to seek the Lord in everything. And so, that's how Enoch was able to walk before the Lord, and we should definitely follow that example. But then also we have Noah as well. Noah was a man who walked by faith, or walked with the Lord, even though everyone around him was not walking with the Lord. In chapter 6 and verse 5, starting in verse 5, we get a description of what the world was like in the time of Noah. It says, "Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart were only evil continually. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. The Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, from man to animals, to creeping things, and to birds of the sky, for I am sorry that I made them." But then listen to this next statement, verse 8. "But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord." Imagine this scenario in your life. Imagine you being the only person who was walking with God over the whole face of the earth. And even though this story comes only a few chapters after the creation, we might imagine, oh, there's just a handful of people living at this time. But no, given the length of life of each of these generations and each of these people, it's very likely that there could have been millions of people living on the earth. And out of those millions of people, you're the only person who is actually trying to serve God. And, we can gather from our own experience how difficult that can be. Maybe you've been in a situation where on the job site, you're the only person who really is serving the Lord. Maybe there's other people who might believe in God, but they don't really obey God, and they're not really dedicated to the Lord. And you can feel a bit ostracized by that, and maybe feel lonely in the sense that you're the only one trying to serve God. It could be the same in your family. Maybe you're the only person in your family who's a Christian. We can begin to feel that way with our nation. If the nation begins to become corrupt and people begin to fall away from the Lord, we might begin to feel more and more alienated. That can be a very difficult thing. It's easy or easier to walk before God when everybody else around you is walking with God, but it becomes very, very difficult when you're the only one. And Noah was able to persevere through that, and it was his faith that held him together. Going back to Hebrews chapter 11, in verse 7, it says, By faith Noah, being warned by God about things not yet seen, in reverence prepared an ark for the salvation of his household, by which he condemned the world and became the heir of righteousness, which is according to faith. And so Noah was able to persevere with the Lord by faith, and was also obedient to the Lord in building the ark. And so there is a perseverance that must take place if we are going to walk before the Lord. And so for our reading today and for our meditation today, let's just think about these things. How is it that I can increase my walk before the Lord? How can I become more obedient to the Lord? How can I walk in a way that is by faith, where I have a faith that is continually expanding and growing? How is it that also I can live a life in which I seek the Lord more often, that I spend more time on my knees praying to the Lord, more time drawing my heart to Him? And then also, let's focus on having that walk before the Lord that perseveres, even though we might be the only ones, or at least a few of the people who are actually walking before God, that we do so anyways, knowing that He is a rewarder of those who seek Him. Hope this video has helped you guys today. I do thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have a great day. I love you guys. God bless.